Earth's first encounter with alien life didn't come with flashing lights or dramatic landings in major cities. Instead, it arrived silently when unusual readings appeared on deep space monitoring stations across the globe. Jack Porter was reviewing data at NASA's command center when the anomalies first registered. The veteran astronaut leaned forward, coffee forgotten, as he studied the readings showing objects decelerating as they entered the outer solar system. "This isn't natural movement," he muttered, calling over his colleague Olivia Wright, the agency's leading xenobiologist. Olivia pushed her glasses up and frowned at the screen. "Whatever these are, they're adjusting course deliberately. We need to alert everyone." Within hours, governments worldwide mobilized as 7 sleek vessels approached Earth. Their design was unlike anything humans had imagined: smooth curves that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, with no visible propulsion systems. The aliens called themselves representatives of the Galactic Council, a coalition of 23 spacefaring species that maintained order across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. Their translator devices converted their musical language into perfect English as they requested a formal meeting with Earth's leaders. "We've been observing your development," said Selner, the blue-skinned lead diplomat. "Your species has reached the threshold where contact is permitted." The United Nations convened an emergency session. Jack and Olivia found themselves appointed to the first contact team due to their expertise, alongside diplomats and military personnel from major nations. "They're offering us technology centuries beyond our capabilities," said Olivia during preparation meetings. "Medical advances, clean energy, faster than light travel. It could transform our civilization overnight." Jack nodded but couldn't shake his unease. "It all seems too generous. What do they want in return?" The Council representatives established a base on neutral territory in Antarctica. There, Earth's delegation met with aliens of various forms, some humanoid, others defying human categorization entirely. During official negotiations, Selner explained the benefits of joining the Council. "Your planet will gain protected status. We'll establish trade routes and cultural exchanges. Your scientists will have access to our knowledge bases." The terms seemed favorable. Earth would provide some natural resources and allow Council observation posts, but would maintain sovereignty and receive significant technological assistance. Yet when Jack entered a Council vessel restroom, or what he assumed was their equivalent, he discovered his translator had connected to their internal network. Out of curiosity, he accessed recent communications and felt his blood run cold. "The primitives are responding as expected," read one message. "Their eagerness for advancement makes them easy to manipulate." Another message outlined plans to establish mining operations in Earth's oceans and remote regions without full disclosure to human authorities. Most disturbing was a population assessment classifying humans as suitable for labor integration on resource worlds. Jack discreetly copied the data and shared it with Olivia and their security chief, Steve Russell. They verified its authenticity but faced a difficult decision. Confronting the Council could provoke an overwhelming response from their technologically superior fleet. "We need to play along," Steve advised. "Accept their terms while we prepare." The world leaders, presented with the evidence, but also aware of Earth's vulnerability, agreed to a risky strategy. They would formally accept Council membership while secretly preparing defenses. 6 months later, as Earth signed the formal agreement with the Galactic Council, celebrations filled streets worldwide. Humans embraced the promise of a bright future among the stars. Few knew that beneath the Antarctic ice, engineers were already reverse engineering alien technology from the data Jack had stolen. The Council representatives smiled with their strange mouths as the treaty was signed, unaware that their newest, primitive member had already seen through their deception and was quietly planning a response that would one day shock the galaxy. The agreement with the Galactic Council brought immediate changes to Earth. Orbital platforms appeared above major cities, which the Council claimed were observation and communication relays. Small groups of alien scientists and diplomats established bases in remote areas for cultural exchange. At first, everything seemed positive. The Council provided limited medical technology that cured several previously untreatable diseases. They offered cleaner energy solutions and improved agricultural methods. World leaders praised the new Galactic partnership in public addresses. But 3 months after the signing, fishermen in the South Pacific reported strange lights beneath the ocean. Coast Guard vessels investigating the area were warned away by Council ships. This region is now under Council research jurisdiction. The alien commander stated flatly, "Refer to Section 17 of the membership agreement." When Earth officials reviewed the document, they found vague clauses allowing the Council to establish research zones with minimal notice. Similar incidents occurred in the Arctic, Amazon basin, and across Central Africa. Olivia Wright, now leading the scientific analysis team, discovered the pattern. They're targeting areas with rare earth elements and minerals. These aren't research stations, they're mining operations. Jack Porter, recently promoted to liaison between Earth governments and the Council, confronted Zellner during a scheduled meeting. "Your activities weren't part of our understanding," Jack said, sliding evidence across the table. "You've established over 50 extraction sites without proper consultation." Zellner's multifaceted eyes revealed no emotion. "The agreement grants us access to necessary resources. Your understanding is irrelevant." "These operations are damaging fragile ecosystems," Jack pressed. "Our oceans." "Your oceans will recover," Zellner interrupted. "All member worlds contribute to Council prosperity. Did you expect special treatment?" When Jack returned to the UN headquarters, he found Steve Russell waiting with more disturbing news. Satellite imagery showed Council ships landing in uninhabited areas of Australia, Mongolia, and Canada. Ground teams investigating found massive drilling operations extracting minerals at rates that would deplete reserves within years instead of centuries. "They're stripping us bare," Steve said. "And there's more. They've started recruiting humans for educational opportunities off-world." He handed Jack a tablet showing thousands of names. "These people left Earth last month. Communication with them has been suspiciously limited." Earth's Security Council met in secret. Representatives from major nations reviewed the evidence and debated options. "We should file a formal complaint with the full Galactic Council," suggested one diplomat. "And if they dismiss it?" asked another. "Their technology outmatches our entire military." The answer came the following day when Earth publicly questioned the mining operations. The Council responded by imposing immediate compliance measures. Their ships established no-fly zones over key Earth facilities. Resource extraction accelerated. And most alarmingly, they demanded 20,000 human representatives for integration training on Council worlds. When several nations refused, Council ships disabled power grids across resistant countries with targeted electromagnetic pulses. No weapons were fired, but the message was clear. "You misunderstand your position." Drix, a new Council overseer, explained during an emergency session at the United Nations. "You are not equal partners. You are a resource world. Your cooperation is preferred but not required." As delegates sat in stunned silence, Drix continued, "Your species showed promise, but your provincial thinking disappoints. The Council has invested considerable resources here. We expect return on that investment." That night, Olivia, Jack, and Steve met with military leaders in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Diplomacy has failed," Steve said grimly. "We need to consider our options before they strip our planet bare or turn us into their workforce." Admiral Susan Barnes, who had quietly been preparing contingency plans, looked around the room. "Then it's time to show them what humans do when backed into a corner." 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, Earth presented a face of reluctant compliance to their alien overlords. Nations worldwide appeared to accept their role as a resource world, with minimal resistance to the increasing demands for minerals and human labor. Behind this mask of submission, Admiral Susan Barnes was building humanity's response. In underground facilities scattered across all continents, scientists and engineers worked tirelessly on what was codenamed Project Phoenix. "We have to be smarter, not stronger," Susan told her growing team of military specialists and civilian experts. "Direct confrontation is suicide." At a hidden base beneath the Ural Mountains, scientists Kate Miller and Alan Gomes led efforts to understand alien technology. They worked with components salvaged from damaged Council ships and equipment, carefully avoiding detection by the advanced surveillance systems that now monitored Earth. Their quantum navigation relies on paired particles, Kate explained during a briefing, pointing to a complex diagram. "It's their greatest strength, but potentially their greatest weakness." Alan nodded. "We've identified a frequency that disrupts the pairing. In theory, it could render their ships blind and immobile." While the scientists worked on technology, Intelligence Officer Greg Wilson built a network of human spies. Council aliens had begun employing humans as servants in their bases, considering them too primitive to be security threats. This arrogance created openings. "They discuss everything in front of us," reported Maria, a cleaner at the Council's North American headquarters. "They don't think we understand their technology or can access their systems." Through this network, Greg discovered something crucial. Earth wasn't the Council's first victim. Dozens of worlds had been similarly exploited, their resources drained before being abandoned. Some species were still used as labor on resource worlds, generations after their planets were depleted. Most importantly, Greg's agents identified a growing faction within the Council that disapproved of these practices. Several advanced species had begun questioning the ethics of exploitation, creating political tension. While gathering intelligence, Earth continued apparent cooperation. The Council's demands grew more extreme as their confidence increased. They now openly referred to Earth as a transitional world that would eventually be graduated to a labor provider once its resources were depleted. Council ships established larger mining operations across all continents. When protests erupted in major cities, they were quickly suppressed by targeted power outages and communication blackouts. Thousands of humans were now leaving Earth monthly for educational opportunities on Council worlds. In reality, they were forced into labor camps. But among them were volunteers from military special forces, smuggling information back through covered channels. One of these operatives, Navy SEAL Ben Reed, managed to escape from a mining moon and return to Earth with crucial data on Council security systems and fleet positions. His information confirmed a critical weakness. The Council's overconfidence had led to minimal security on their primary communication network. They never designed their systems to keep out species they consider inferior, Ben explained during his debriefing. Their arrogance is our opportunity. As Project Phoenix progressed, Earth maintained its facade of submission. Officials publicly praised the Council, while secretly preparing for resistance. Resources were discreetly stockpiled. Military units trained in isolation. Manufacturing facilities, hidden in abandoned mines and underwater installations, produced components for weapons that could exploit the weaknesses Kate and Alan had discovered. In Antarctica, far from Council observation posts, Earth's first truly advanced spacecraft took shape. Built with a combination of stolen technology and human innovation, these ships were designed specifically to counter Council vessels. "We're ready for the next phase," Susan told the assembled leaders of the resistance. "We need to establish contact with other exploited worlds." Jack Porter, who had been maintaining his role as liaison to keep suspicion at bay, looked at the plans spread before them. "The Council thinks they've broken us. When we finally move, they won't know what hit them." Across the table, Olivia smiled grimly. "Let's show them just how dangerous a primitive species can be." 1 year after first contact, Earth bore little resemblance to the free world it had once been. Council ships now filled the skies above major cities. Mining operations had expanded to cover vast regions of every continent, leaving behind toxic wastelands where forests and grasslands once stood. Council representatives no longer bothered with diplomatic niceties. They issued demands rather than requests, speaking to world leaders as one might address disobedient children. Your production quotas have fallen 13% below acceptable levels, declared Verex, the newly appointed council overseer for Earth. His gray, chitinous form towered over the humans, gathered in what had once been the United Nations chamber. This deficiency will be corrected. The correction came in the form of forced relocations. Entire towns were emptied to provide workers for the expanding mines. Council ships would appear without warning, their gravity beams lifting people from streets and homes. Those who resisted were stunned with mural disruptors that left them with tremors and memory gaps. In what once was Colorado, Diane Carter watched from a hidden ridge as aliens loaded her neighbors into transport ships. A former police officer, she had escaped into the mountains when the council first began their aggressive expansion. They took at least 300 this time. She whispered into her encrypted communicator, heading to the Australian megamine, according to the transport codes. Understood, came Admiral Barnes' reply. Stay hidden. Your network is keeping too many people safe to risk exposure. Diane now led one of dozens of resistance cells that operated across the planet. They maintained hidden shelters, moved people ahead of planned council suites, and gathered information on council activities. They also rescued workers when possible, though success was rare and dangerous. The council had established processing centers where humans were prepared for off-world labor. These facilities removed what they called cultural contaminants, essentially breaking down human resistance through a combination of drug treatments and psychological conditioning. Inside one such facility outside former Shanghai, Dr. Peter Collins maintained his cover as a collaborative physician while secretly gathering evidence. As a specialist in neurology, he had been forced to help develop the conditioning protocols. They've refined the process, he reported through an implanted communicator that bypassed council surveillance. They can now process 5,000 humans weekly at this facility alone. There are 17 similar centers globally. The council's confidence in their control led to increasingly brutal efficiency. Resources were now extracted without any concern for environmental damage. Seed mining had collapsed entire marine ecosystems. Atmospheric pollution from processing facilities created toxic rain that killed crops and wildlife. When several major nations attempted coordinated resistance, the council response was swift and terrible. Precision strikes from orbit destroyed military bases. Government leaders were publicly removed and replaced with more cooperative officials. Council ships established permanent positions above major population centers, their weapons visibly powered and ready. Earth will be completely pacified within one orbital cycle, Verex announced through worldwide broadcasts. Continued resistance only prolongs your inevitable transition. What the Council didn't realize was that each display of force, each new atrocity, strengthened the resolve of the hidden resistance. Project Phoenix continued to develop in secret facilities buried deep beneath mountains and oceans. Kate Miller's team had successfully created a functional prototype of their quantum disruption system. Ellen Gomes had integrated it into compact devices that could be deployed against council ships. The first secret tests had exceeded expectations, completely disabling a small council transport during a remote test in the Antarctic wastes. Meanwhile, Greg Wilson's intelligence network had expanded beyond Earth. Using modified council communication technology, they had established contact with resistance movements on 3 other exploited worlds. Information and strategies flowed between these unlikely allies, carefully encrypted to avoid detection. The Council is planning something big, Jack Porter warned during an emergency meeting of resistance leaders. Their ships are moving into new formations. They're bringing in specialized mining equipment we haven't seen before. Susan Barnes studied the holographic display showing council deployments. Whatever they're planning, we need to move before they start. It's time to activate the final phase. Around the table, the leaders of Earth's last hope nodded in grim agreement. The time for hiding was coming to an end. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in a cavern large enough to house several aircraft carriers, Earth's final defense took shape. The facility had been constructed in absolute secrecy, using technology that masked thermal signatures and disrupted Council scanning systems. Frank Martinez stood before a sleek black device no larger than a microwave oven. The engineer had spent 18 months perfecting what the Resistance now called the blindfold, a quantum disruption system that could sever the connection between paired particles that Council ships relied on for navigation, communication, and weapons targeting. The breakthrough came when we realized we didn't need to understand exactly how their technology works, Frank explained to Admiral Barnes. We just needed to create enough quantum noise to break their system's coherence. Susan nodded, her breath fogging in the cold air. And you're certain they can't shield against it? Their systems are built on the assumption that no primitive species could manipulate quantum fields. There's no defense because they never imagined an attack on this level. Around them, technicians installed similar devices into Earth's secret fleet, 27 spacecraft built using a combination of reverse-engineered Council technology and human innovation. Unlike the elegant curve-hulled Council vessels, these ships were angular and utilitarian, designed for a single purpose. In another section of the vast facility, Jack Porter and Olivia Wright studied detailed maps of Council positions across Earth and the solar system. Their command structure is centralized, Jack said, pointing to a large vessel in orbit. They rely on continuous communication with regional administrators. If we cut that off, their forces will be isolated and unable to coordinate, Olivia finished. But we'll only have a short window before they adapt. The Council remained oblivious to these preparations. Their surveillance focused on known human military and government facilities, never suspecting that the real threat was developing in places they considered too remote or hostile for meaningful resistance. Greg Wilson's intelligence network had identified Council weaknesses beyond their technology. They'd grown complacent, he reported. Many of their ships operate with minimal crews. They've come to see Earth as fully pacified. This arrogance extended to their treatment of humans. Council representatives openly discussed their plans around their human servants, never imagining these primitives could understand complex technology or organize effective resistance. Most valuable was the intelligence provided by humans, forced to work on Council ships and bases. Hidden among the thousands of laborers sent off-world were resistance operatives who smuggled back critical information about Council security systems and protocols. Kate Miller, working with data provided by these operatives, had created detailed simulations of Council defense systems. Their ships all used the same basic operating principles, she explained during the final briefing. Once the blindfold disrupts their quantum network, they'll be effectively blind and paralyzed. What made the plan particularly effective was its simplicity. The Council expected any human resistance to involve conventional weapons, missiles, bombers, perhaps nuclear devices. They were prepared for these threats. They weren't prepared for an attack on the fundamental principles their technology relied upon. They see us as cave people with slightly better tools, Alan Gomes remarked as he calibrated the final blindfold devices. They can't imagine we've learned to turn their own science against them. As preparations entered their final stage, the Council announced plans to accelerate resource extraction. New equipment arrived from their home systems, massive mining platforms capable of removing entire mountain ranges in days. Whatever they're looking for, they're getting desperate, Susan observed as she reviewed satellite imagery of the new Council deployments. This might be why their defenses have grown lax. They're focusing everything on extraction. The Resistance now faced a critical decision: strike immediately with what they had ready, or wait until more ships and blindfold devices could be completed. After heated debate, the decision was made. They couldn't wait any longer. "We move in 72 hours, Susan announced to the gathered leaders. "Distribute the activation codes. Alert all cells. Operation Phoenix begins at dawn." As the orders went out through secure channels, Frank Martinez made a final adjustment to the master blindfold unit. "I hope they enjoy the dark," he said quietly. "They've kept us in it long enough." The Council never saw it coming. At precisely 600 GMT, as dawn broke over the Atlantic, Frank Martinez activated the master blindfold device. Across Earth and throughout near space, Council technology suddenly failed. On their flagship orbiting Earth, Varex was midway through issuing new extraction quotas when every system went dark. Screens flickered and died. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. The quantum communication network that connected all Council forces dissolved into static. "What is happening?" he demanded, his translator barely functioning. "Restore systems immediately." His technicians worked frantically, but without their quantum diagnostics, they were effectively blind. For the first time in centuries of galactic dominance, Council forces faced an attack they couldn't comprehend. Commander Lisa Johnson watched from the bridge of EDF Defiance, Earth's first true warship, as the Council vessels drifted in confused circles. Their sleek designs, once so intimidating, now seemed vulnerable. "All ships report ready," her communications officer announced. "Blindfold effect at 97% efficiency." Lisa nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Launch Phase 2. Across Earth, thousands of resistance fighters emerged from hiding. They struck Council ground installations with precision and coordination that shocked the alien occupiers. The resistance had planned this moment for months, identifying exactly which facilities to target first. In Australia, Diane Carter led 50 fighters against one of the largest processing centers. With Council security systems disabled, they moved through the facility's outer defenses without resistance. "We have 5 minutes before their backup systems adapt," she reminded her team. "Move fast. Stay focused." Inside, they found thousands of humans awaiting processing for off-world labor. As alarms blared ineffectually, Diane's team freed the prisoners and distributed weapons taken from confused Council guards. Similar scenes played out worldwide. Council bases that had seemed impregnable suddenly lay exposed. The aliens, accustomed to relying on advanced technology, found themselves outmatched by humans, fighting with desperate determination. In space, the battle proved equally one-sided. Earth's small fleet, commanded by Lisa Johnson, engaged the disoriented Council ships. The blindfold devices continued to disrupt the aliens' navigation and weapons systems, leaving them unable to coordinate or return fire effectively. "Target their propulsion systems," Lisa ordered. "Disable, don't destroy unless necessary." Her strategy wasn't born of mercy but practicality. Each captured Council vessel would provide valuable technology and intelligence. Earth needed every advantage for the battles that would surely follow. On the Council flagship, Varex watched in horror as his fleet was systematically neutralized. Ships that had dominated countless worlds were being disabled by vessels that hadn't existed 2 years ago. "This is impossible," he hissed as Lisa's face appeared on a jury-rigged communication screen. "Your species cannot have developed this technology." "You made a critical mistake," Lisa replied calmly. "You judged us by our technology, not our potential. You should have studied our history more carefully." As the space battle concluded, resistance forces secured Council installations across Earth. The aliens who had arrived as conquerors now found themselves prisoners. After 18 hours of coordinated action, the planet that the Council had dismissed as pacified had completely reversed its situation. Admiral Barnes arrived at the Antarctic Command Center to find the atmosphere electric with cautious celebration. Screens showed Council ships being towed to secure facilities. Ground teams reported successful liberation of processing centers worldwide. "We've won the first battle," Susan announced to her staff. "But this is just the beginning. Prepare our ships for immediate departure." Jack Porter looked up from his tactical display. "Departure? We've barely secured Earth." Susan's expression was grim but determined. "The Council will send reinforcements once they realize what's happened. We can't just defend. We need to take the fight to them." On screens around the room, images showed freed humans emerging from Council facilities worldwide. Many were thin and showed signs of abuse, but their faces reflected the same determination that had fueled the resistance. And Susan continued, We have thousands of our people still in labor camps throughout council space. We're not leaving them behind." Olivia Wright nodded in agreement. The council thought they were creating a workforce. Instead, they'd given us an army behind their lines. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council had remained unchanged for millennia. 300 delegates from 23 spacefaring civilizations sat in concentric rings, their elevated positions symbolizing their assumed superiority over the galaxy's developing species. Today, that perfect order was shattered. Alarms blared throughout the massive structure as reports flooded in from across council space. Labor worlds in rebellion. Communication networks compromised. Entire fleets disabled or captured. And now, the unthinkable. Earth ships had entered the Centaurus system, home to the Council's central authority. The chamber doors slid open. Admiral Susan Barnes strode in, flanked by Jack Porter, Olivia Wright, and 20 armed human soldiers. Behind them walked representatives from 4 other species, former resource worlds, that had joined Earth's rapidly growing coalition. "This emergency session of the Council is now in order," announced the Central Administrator, a tall crystalline being who had held power for over a century. His voice betrayed no emotion, but the rapid color changes across his surface revealed his agitation. "You have no authority here," he continued as Susan approached the center of the chamber. "Your violations of council law." "We recognize no authority from those who came to our world under false pretenses," Susan interrupted, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "Who exploited our resources, enslaved our people, and planned to reduce our planet to a barren husk." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many council delegates had never seen a human before. Others had only interacted with carefully selected collaborators or processed laborers. Susan gestured, and Greg Wilson activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed footage from council ships and bases on Earth, the ruthless extraction operations, the processing centers, the casual cruelty toward humans. "These records were taken from your own systems," Jack explained. "Your own documentation of crimes against not just Earth, but dozens of worlds." The Central Administrator's surface paled. These operations were conducted according to established protocol for developing worlds. "The Council has always lied," Olivia finished for him. "You've always lied. You claim to represent galactic civilization while behaving like pirates." From the upper tiers, a delegate from one of the oldest council species rose. "These accusations are serious but require proper investigation before." "The time for investigations has passed," Susan said firmly. She nodded to Frank Martinez, who had quietly entered the chamber. He activated the small device, and immediately, the council's security systems went offline. The personal shields protecting the delegates flickered and died. Panic rippled through the assembly as they realized they were defenseless. "We could take this chamber by force," Susan continued, "just as you took our world. We could impose our will upon you, as you did to us. That would be justice by your standards." The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated this grim possibility. "But we are not you," Susan declared. "Earth and our allies, the Sovereign Alliance, offered different terms." Lisa Johnson stepped forward, carrying a data crystal containing their demands: immediate liberation of all labor worlds, reparations for environmental damage, trials for those who ordered the exploitation, and equal representation for all spacefaring species regardless of technological development. "You have one standard day to consider," Susan informed them, "during which our fleet will remain in orbit." The Central Administrator's surface had now turned a deep blue of distress. "This is unprecedented. The Council has stood for 15,000 years. Then perhaps it's time for change," Jack replied. 15,000 years of exploitation is enough." As the human delegation turned to leave, a younger council member called out, "How? How did a primitive world accomplish this in less than 2 years?" Susan paused at the doorway. "You mistake technology for civilization. You assume that because our ships were simpler, Our minds must be as well. You never considered that a species that survived its own violent history might understand conflict better than those born into privilege. And, added Olivia with a slight smile, you talked too much in front of your servants. 3 days later, the Galactic Council voted to accept all terms presented by the Sovereign Alliance. The system that had dominated the galaxy for millennia transformed overnight. Former resource worlds gained full membership status. Exploitation policies were abolished. Those responsible faced justice. Earth, once dismissed as insignificant, now stood at the center of a new galactic order. Not through conquest, but by uniting the oppressed against their common exploiter. 5 years after the formation of the Sovereign Alliance, Earth had changed in ways few could have imagined during the dark days of Council occupation. The scars of mining operations were healing, with advanced restoration technology returning ravaged landscapes to their natural state. Cities once shadowed by looming council ships now gleamed with a blend of human and alien architecture, their skylines reflecting a new era of cooperation. Ryan Cooper stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the massive orbital facility that served as headquarters for the Alliance. As Earth's ambassador to the new galactic government, he had witnessed the transformation from a unique perspective. "Still can't believe it sometimes," he said to Frank Martinez, who had joined him at the viewport. The engineer whose quantum disruption technology had turned the tide against the Council now led the Alliance's technology exchange program. Below them, Earth glowed blue and green, unmarred by the pollution that had once threatened to choke its ecosystems. Ships of various designs moved in orderly patterns around the planet. Traders, diplomats, and tourists from dozens of worlds. The Council archives estimated it would take us at least 2 centuries to develop faster-than-light travel on our own, Frank noted. Instead, we're already improving on their designs. The human breakthrough had sparked a renaissance across former Council space. With knowledge no longer restricted to privileged species, innovation flourished. Earth's universities now hosted students from 27 worlds, while human scientists and engineers studied at institutions across the Alliance. Not everything had been smooth. Some Council loyalists had resisted the new order, leading to scattered conflicts throughout the region. A faction of extremists had attempted to deploy biological weapons against Earth 2 years earlier, seeing humans as dangerous upstarts who had destroyed millennia of stability. The plot had been foiled by the combined efforts of multiple species intelligence services, including former Council members who had embraced the more equitable system. This cooperation had strengthened the Alliance and isolated the remaining hardliners. In the recovery center attached to Harmony Station, Diane Carter worked with former human laborers still dealing with the psychological effects of Council processing. The resistance fighter had found a new purpose, helping others heal from trauma she understood too well. Each week, fewer nightmares, she told a group of recently rescued workers from a hidden Council facility in the Orion Arm. Each day, more strength. What they did to us wasn't just cruelty. It was fear. They recognized something in humans they couldn't control. That something had become the subject of study across the Alliance. Human adaptability, creativity under pressure, and ability to cooperate across cultural divides had proven remarkably effective against the rigid hierarchies of the Council. Admiral Susan Barnes, now Supreme Commander of the Alliance Defense Force, had incorporated these insights into training programs that brought together species with vastly different physiologies and cultural backgrounds. The result was a military unlike any the galaxy had seen before, adaptive, innovative, and committed to protection rather than dominance. In the diplomatic wing of Harmony Station, Jack Porter and Olivia Wright prepared for a meeting with representatives from a previously unknown civilization at the galaxy's edge. These newcomers had observed the fall of the Council and approached the Alliance cautiously, unsure whether it represented a true alternative or merely a new empire with different leaders. "We need to show them we're not just the Council with human faces," Jack remarked as they reviewed their presentation. "The difference isn't who's in charge, it's how we make decisions." Olivia nodded. Transparency, shared benefits, equal voice regardless of technology level or military strength. The true revolution had not been in overthrowing the Council, but in creating a fundamentally different approach to galactic civilization. Instead of exploitation masked by bureaucracy, the Alliance offered genuine cooperation and mutual advancement. On Earth itself, the public squares where Council proclamations once echoed now hosted markets where humans and aliens traded goods, ideas, and stories. Children played with species their grandparents had feared. Universities built new departments dedicated to comparative biology, synapsecology, and interspecies ethics. The Council's greatest mistake had been assuming that humans would accept their place in a predetermined hierarchy. Instead, Earth had not only fought back, but reimagined what galactic society could be, proving that the most powerful technology wasn't faster ships or better weapons,